Welcome back to the Questions About Life podcast. I'm Brian Fleming.
And I'm Daniel Broome.
Today's question is this. Are our lives made up of the stories we tell ourselves? Are our lives made up of the stories we tell ourselves? In other words, what actually makes up the life we experience every day? I had this thought drop on me during a really interesting time, and I wasn't trying to think anything. It just kind of came to me, and it was basically it came in the form of a statement of basically, your life is made up of the stories you tell yourself about the things you see, hear, experience. Because we can all see something and then have different ideas and thoughts and stories that we tell ourselves about what we saw and experienced. And that led to the question: is that pretty much what makes up our lives? The stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. It definitely is one way of looking at it, I think.
Yeah.
And if that's the way you're looking at it, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Because, just initial reactions to that is it's like something that I talk about a lot, and we've talked about a lot, is like perception is reality. Our perception of things is what we know to be real. So we've all got that filter that we receive perceptions through, and then make sense of it when it comes out the other side of the filter.
Yeah, I think some good proof of that too, that sort of validates that thought, is if you think about like the strongest political messages that sway people, or the strongest religious messages that sway people, or any message that is influencing and swaying people to do something.
Yeah.
Really effective ones, they follow certain rules that usually tend to be rules for good storytelling.
Yeah.
If you want to sell something, if you know how to tell a great story, you can talk to somebody who's an ideal customer. And if you're telling the story of their struggle,
sure,
and how you understand it too, and you've dealt with it, and you had a solution, and you can justify the price because it outweighs the continuing to deal with the problem, it's like the story sold it.
Yeah.
You didn't have to hard sell anything.
Well, no, you're right, because that's sort of how as humans we receive or relate to concepts and information is literally in the form of a story. Like a politician will use an example in a cause, like, I met young Johnny today, and young Johnny has lupus, and this is why we're doing this thing on lupus. Or the Bible's full of short stories.
Tons.
That's
stories.
What the Bible is, short stories.
Yep. Stories, parables, all kinds of, and very good ones, very effective ones too.
Yeah. And so I think the answer to that question is unequivocally yes. Now, that's not to say that there are not other ways that we can look at what reality and all that is, but all that stuff aside, the truth still remains that the answer to that question is definitely yes.
Yeah.
But and I think the reason that the question is so interesting is because we don't think of things that way. We normally just look at things like, I'm in this room, and this is my reality, and this is my life is sitting in this room podcasting with Brian right now.
Yeah.
But that's the story. There's a story I'm still telling myself about what's happening right now,
even if you don't realize you're doing it.
Even if I don't really, because I've always been doing it, and there's a story that you're telling yourself about this particular moment, and ours might not exactly match.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't make your story necessarily less valid or true than mine.
Not at all. They're both equally.
We just have maybe different experiences that are telling us a different story, even maybe about the same thing.
Yeah, and there might also even be parallels where, like, oh, these parts match, these parts don't.
Yeah.
I think the question is just as interesting as the answer, because just the question itself causes us to sort of evaluate how we perceive things. how much control we have over what we perceive, and is my life good? Am I happy? Am I a good father, or is my future bright? Like, all of that is related to the stories I'm telling myself. The stories we're telling ourselves.
Yeah, well, a good example, like you just said, am I a good father? Well, you might have just had to discipline your kid, and you really don't want to, but you're like, there's certain points where you have to. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, you're like, was I too heavy-handed? Would I go too far? Could I have handled that better? Did it damage the kid? Or was I too hard on him? Then you're like, man, I'm not a very good father sometimes. I mean, there's the story.
Yeah.
It's like, and who's dictating this? I mean, we're thinking it, but I know we've asked this question before, where do thoughts come from? Mm-hmm. Because it's like, well, how would I imagine if I was too hard on one of my kids? It's like, well, I'm comparing, there's two extremes. Like, everyone gets a trophy, nobody should be punished for anything, which is completely stupid. And then there's like, oh, your kid didn't do his homework and he failed the test, and you hit him with a bat. Like, okay, that's the other extreme. Like, you don't do that. That's way abusive. But there's that spectrum and everything in between.
There's a balance, yeah.
And we have this idea of in between, and where is right and wrong. And people have different stories and ideas about that. I was raised way old fashioned. Leather belts, wire coat hangers, and getting your ass beat.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've never been arrested. Not to say that nowadays people go, oh my God, you're abused. And I'm like, me and my brother, we earned a lot of that shit. I will tell you right now. Now, I don't really do that with my kids. I've spanked them when they were younger. Gosh, I couldn't even tell you the last time. They're 14 and 11 now. It's been years since I even thought. I just found for that sake, I was actually getting tension headaches from getting angry and punishing them. Yeah. Where I was like, I've got to do something that's way less stressful on me, because I was getting tension headaches I started getting while I was in the war in Afghanistan, here in the occipital nerve on the right side, and it would just climb up, and I would be done for the day.
Interesting.
So that's when I just started going, 20 push-ups, go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm not mad. I'm not going to yell. I'm just like, do push-ups. That's your story right now. You're gonna do 20 push-ups, and when you're done, and my kids are really good at push-ups, and sometimes I'll do it with them.
It's
and be
funny.
Sometimes we all get punished if you get punished. So,
I've always wondered about that form of discipline, because obviously we were both exposed to that form. That's the number one form of discipline in the Army.
Yeah.
And it struck me back then too. It was like when you come to realize exercise is what we got to do when we fuck up, right? and it's like, oh, I know why this is effective, because it sucks, it hurts. And I've always wondered. My kids are a little younger; they're 3 and almost 6. But I've always wondered if that would be a good discipline technique to use on kids.
Well,
there's found some success with it.
There's two sides to it, I think.
You're doing this before. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're doing the same thing. You're inflicting pain, but it's a little bit more of a.
Yeah, I'm just not doing it.
Yeah,
they're doing it to themselves,
right?
As a result of not doing the right thing. There's consequence.
Yeah.
Well, and there's now on the one side, you'll get strong, so that's really good. That leads to more confidence. You'll have better looking muscles. You'll be stronger. All the happy chemicals you get from working out, you're getting them whether you're liking what you're doing or not. Now, on the flip side, though, I've never wanted to use it so much as punishment that it's like, when I grew up, I'm never working out. Because all they associate with is being disciplined or getting in trouble. And now they have this negative association with push-ups. Yeah. So that's why I'll often do them with them. Okay. And be like, hey, we're doing this together. Or there'll be other times.
By example, though.
Yeah. And there'll be other times hey, we need to eat breakfast. But before breakfast, we're all doing 20 push-ups. And I jump down with them. We knock them out. And I'll make a fun game of it.
Yeah.
And then, all right, we did it. Good job. High fives. So there's that blended in too. So it's not all just discipline.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up, we didn't have a dishwasher. Well, me and my brother, we were the dishwasher. It was an old sink. We didn't have a dishwasher. They had to do it by hand, reach down in the scummy water and all that. Well, to this day, I'm like, well, I have 2 kids and a dishwasher, so I don't touch dishes because I can do that now. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm not like I'll clean the whole downstairs. I'm not washing 5 dishes. I'm not doing it. And so it's like it was like the one thing I hated most. Now, not to be immature, yes, of course I could. And on occasion, I'll tell you what, it's funny. I'll be at someone else's house after we have dinner. I'll rinse my bowl out, wash it out. I'll even like put it in their dishwasher for them. Yeah. But I won't do it at my house.
Yeah.
It's like I respect your house more than mine.
It's funny you said that you used the dishwashing example because I had the opposite experience where I had to do a lot of chores as a kid. You know, I mowed the lawn. I had a lot of different chores, but washing dishes was never one of them. And my mom always took care of that. And then after she passed away, honestly, this is how much I was uninvolved in the dishwashing process. I don't know who took care of it after my mom passed away. I don't know. They just got washed, right?
Paper plates and plasticware.
Yeah. So fast forward to being an adult, you know, you run into scenarios where there's nobody else is going to wash your dishes for you. It's you. They pile up unless you do them. And so I slowly had to teach myself how to properly wash dishes. It's weird because I actually had anxiety over it. I was afraid that I was doing it wrong or, you know, like not getting them clean enough.
This is after jumping out of airplanes for a living. Full combat load. In Alaska.
Yeah, like during the same time. Like I didn't know how to
like you're jumping out of
a jump and like I don't know.
Jumping out of an airplane at 1,500 feet, full battle rattle, a machine gun maybe. But what really puts you on edge is those 5 bowls and those 7 plates and the silverware.
Cereal bowl, yeah. But it's funny that because I enjoy washing dishes now. Like it's one of my like it's like a happy place for me. It's like I'll put on some music, and I've heard Bill Gates said this. He always does his family's dishes because it's like the moment in the day where he has nothing else to focus on except for those dishes. Everything else is out of his head.
And he doesn't have to be Bill Gates in those moments, probably.
Right? Yeah, he's just
who we know. Bill
person.
Gates.
Yeah, he's just doing normal people things.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, like that dude never ever has to wash a dish. I mean, you
can throw them away.
Yeah,
he can throw them at the wall when he's done with them,
and that would be fun.
Right.
But like, he probably has multiple housekeepers. I'm sure. I mean, given whatever house he lives in or multiple houses, I mean, he has people to do that.
Yeah,
and he probably has a wait staff, serving dinner at his house. I would imagine if you're a billionaire, many people do. But he does dishes because it's like a getaway. That's interesting.
That's his thing.
I understand it though.
Yeah, I get it too. Yeah, me too.
Huh.
Yeah.
Find your thing, I guess.
I'm no Bill Gates, and I don't aspire to be anywhere near Bill Gates' level, but I also have found that as an enjoyable. I didn't realize it until after I read that quote or whatever interview from him, but it's nice. It's at the end of the day. It's after dinner. People leave you alone because you're doing some work,
Yeah.
And you got music on or whatever.
Well, it's probably just like his family and friends too. If it's like after dinner, so it's not like people who are wanting to talk to him or trying to strike a business deal with him.
Elevator pitch.
Yeah, or like they're there because they want something from you.
Right.
Like,
yeah, it's comfortable.
Oh, who was it? I heard a story about, was it Will Ferrell? It was some, don't quote me on this. I don't remember if it was him or not, but it was like a comedian. Okay. Someone who was real funny. And there was something that somebody said about how, like, if it was Will Ferrell, we'll use his name in this example. I think it was, but I don't know. But how, like, his wife and kids don't think he's funny or something. It's like, and if that is him, then I'm getting it right. If it's not him, forgive me for not getting the right name. But it was like this world famous funny guy.
Yeah.
And his family, they're just not impressed. Like, not that they're not impressed, but they just don't think he's funny like the way we do. Like, I can't watch Talladega Nights and Blades of Glory and Step Brothers without laughing my ass off and like rolling. Like,
old school.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, all of it. Like, but it's like, there's something almost like beautiful about the fact, like, they're like, I don't know if it was him too, but like somebody I heard about, it might have been him too. Like one of his kids or whoever I'm thinking of, like they didn't even know their dad was famous until like they were at school one day and they're like, some kid said something and he's like, what? Like the kid didn't even know like his dad was like world famous in what he did.
Yeah.
And there's just something like beautiful about the obliviousness of like your family to what you do. It's like, cause they see you all the time behind closed doors and,
Yep.
you know,
They're tired of your shit.
yeah.
It's not funny anymore.
And having world famous jokes made up about you that everyone laughs at. The whole world laughs at.
Well, it's like that old joke of like, if you see a really attractive woman or something, and then somebody will tell the joke like, well, somebody out there is tired of having sex with her. Somebody out there is tired of her shit.
Yeah.
It's like same deal.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, it was like, no matter how beautiful she is, someone's tired of her shit.
Yeah.
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 And that's everybody. Everyone's human. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Telling stories, the stories we tell ourselves though is interesting because here's a thought, like, how responsible are we for the stories that we do tell ourselves, right? Because we've been, throughout our life, especially when we were kids, is like we've, for lack of a better term, we've been indoctrinated with stories. Our parents will, like my parents, like just off the top of my head, my parents we used to have to eat everything on our plate because the kids in Africa were starving, right? And it's like, that's a story. I mean, it's also, I believe it to be true. There's starving people in Africa. I believed it back then. I believe it today.
Or you can just take Sam Kinnison's advice. He's like, look, if you live in the part of Africa where there's no food, move!
Yeah. It's the fucking desert! Food doesn't grow here!
Move to the fucking city! Solve world hunger. Dude. You've seen it. Sorry, go ahead. So,
you see all this? This is sand.
We don't eat sand! You can't eat it! So, yeah, you're like saying, like, oh, they're starving kids in Africa, so eat everything on their plate. But then you get...
That's a story that I was given.
But then when you become an adult and you have to eat everything on their plate because it's this habit, now you're gaining weight, you're getting unhealthy, you're so full, but you keep eating so you feel like hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not necessarily the healthiest habit, but that was a story, like you said.
Yeah, it was a story I was given. Yeah. Well, we're all given those stories, right? In church, we talked about that. There's a lot of stories that you're given. You get the.
Oh.
Go ahead. What you got?
Okay. Let's look at the process behind the starving kids in Africa. You should clear your plate.
Okay.
So when parents just sort of blindly repeat what they were probably told, hey, eat everything on your plate. You're not getting up till it's gone because there's starving kids in Africa. Let's break this down. What does you clearing your plate, eating everything on it, have? What does
help them?
Yeah. What's it have to do with the kids in Africa? Mm-hmm. It's not like we're sending the leftovers to them.
Yeah.
Or if you eat them, if you eat the rest of it, that somehow they're going to be fed.
Starving. Yeah.
Yeah. But what's the message behind it? Like, you're a bad person if you don't enjoy everything of the luxury, 100% of the luxury you've been given here, because other people don't get that luxury. Some people don't get that luxury. So I think it's kind of an implication. You're like, maybe like, you're a bad person. They're not trying to say that, but it's kind of in there.
It could be. I see that perspective, but it also could be a message to be grateful. It could be like, be grateful that you have this problem of finishing what's on your plate, because the alternative to this problem is what the kids in Africa are going through.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in the world that live that way every day.
Yeah.
Like, we don't hear of it in America. I mean, you don't see it really.
Yeah, what a time to be alive.
I know, right?
It's never been this easy.
Yeah.
Like, that we even have plates.
In grocery stores. There's two grocery stores within 3 minutes
of here.
Store
food. That we can keep food good.
I got a freezer and a fridge here. I've got a deep freezer in my garage.
Yeah.
I can keep meat in there for years.
It's a fairly new phenomenon that we, when we wake up, our thoughts and actions aren't consumed by, we got to get some fucking food.
Yeah, like survival.
We got to eat today. Yeah.
The cavemen used to have to wake up. Well, you go to bed. Okay, we have enough for tonight. We're getting low. We have to go hunt in the morning. And every morning you wake up, you were a caveman.
Yeah, that's all you thought about. Your life revolved around
If you didn't get that, you didn't get nothing else.
Collecting food, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, on top of all the other survival stuff, not to get too far down a rabbit hole, but you ever seen that show on, it's on Hulu called Alone?
Don't think so.
Okay,
Is it
so
like where someone goes out in the wilderness or something?
it's 10 people.
Okay.
They take 10 people out. I've only seen a season and a half, but they take 10 people out, drop them off in. It's filmed in Vancouver Island, I think. In
Okay.
the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Drop them off. No crew members, no like camera crew or anything. It's all self-filmed,
You just go out in the woods?
and it's last man standing. So you gotta just
Okay, I have heard of that.
yeah, you just gotta stay out there. You get no updates about how anybody else is doing, or no human contact whatsoever. You're out there. And there's bears. There's cougars.
Oh, yeah.
It's raining. The winter's coming. You got to build a shelter. You got to fish. You got to do all this stuff. But the thing that gets most of these people, the reason a lot of people tap out is they can't stand being alone. It's just they start missing their family and stuff. We were talking about survival. Oh yeah, we were talking about being hungry and like you're
Every
being
day
a
you wake
caveman.
up. Every day you wake up, it's like you have to go search for food. Well, we don't have that problem.
Yeah, we don't have that problem.
We have
Yeah,
grocery
so we should
stores
be
with
grateful.
surplus, and it's
Yeah.
just there.
Right.
Yeah.
And the kids in Africa, you got to walk 5 miles just to go get a bucket of water to bathe with, drink,
Yeah.
everything.
I remember hearing this story one time of this guy who he was like a missionary down to the Amazon, and he actually befriended one of these native guys, like one of the guys who's probably in his 40s or so in this tribe, which they're primitive down there.
Yeah.
Very primitive.
Where is it at?
Down somewhere in the Amazon rainforest.
Okay.
And so it was this remote tribe in the rainforest. Well, he actually brought the guy to America one time. And this guy, like, he's never heard of TV. Like,
Yeah.
there's no concept. Like,
Sure.
we're talking primal.
Yeah.
They're in the grocery store, and they're going through the checkout line, right? And the American guy, the missionary, he puts his card in the thing, the card reader to pay for it. Like, gives it to the cashier. She swipes it, gives it back to him, and they get the food. And he was just like, so anytime we want food, you just give someone this card, and they give you the food, and then they give you the card back. And you just come back anytime and give them the card, and they
just
give
wanna
you
hold it for
food,
a sec,
and
yeah.
they just want to hold it for a second, and then they give it back to you so you can come back again. And he was just like,
Couldn't believe it.
because his whole life and his whole family and tribe, they go hunt every day.
Yeah. Or trade with people.
Or trade,
Yeah.
or they've got to grow stuff. Like, it was like, there's all this food everywhere, and you just give this person this card, they give you the food, and then they give you the card back. And he had no concept. It was like just mind blown. It was cute. It was
Yeah.
funny. It was cute. It kind of like innocence of like he's the way they live is so different than what we're so accustomed to.
Yeah.
And it's
No
like, well,
kidding.
we have to put money on this card, and he kind of explained that to him a little bit. Like, well, there's we work, and then it kind of makes the card work, and we work, and then we put money on it, and
Yeah.
so like they're giving it back, but we just have to keep it, But yeah, it was so funny where like he had no concept.
That is interesting, man. that reminds me of the gratitude concept though too. Is this like it makes you wonder like which one feels better, going and hunting and working for your own food, like going and shooting a moose or something, and then chopping it up and storing it properly and everything. And when you go to eat that, how grateful are you for your food, as opposed to going to the grocery store and giving your card and getting it back and then just taking it home. It seems like that you're more connected.
You had to work for it. Like
Yeah.
you had skin in the game, effort, sweat. Like you would probably have to drag that sucker a certain amount of distance.
Yeah.
At least to get to your 4-wheeler where you could hook it up with a tow strap or something.
Sure.
And then drag it.
Well, yeah, it's like what? My mom wouldn't have had to remind me about starving kids in Africa if during that time I was taking part in the process of collecting this meat or whatever.
Yeah.
I would have been probably happy to eat it because I knew how hard it was to get.
Yeah, usually anything that you have skin in the game, like you have to contribute and put in effort, like we tend to appreciate it more.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I've told you this before. I stopped Well, I made an exception recently, and you'll know what I'm talking about. But I stopped buying people books. If I recommend a book to somebody, I don't buy it for them. I have them go buy it for themselves, even if it's like $3. It's like
It's not about the number.
yeah, they have skin in the game now. They're much more likely to read it.
Yep.
So
and you bought me a book recently. It
I
showed
bought you, but well, that shows how much confidence I have in you.
Yeah,
It's like I
and
made an exception.
And I've started reading it.
Yeah.
And also, it's like I'm more committed to reading it because I know you don't do that for people, and you did it for me. But plus, it's a topic of interest that actually does interest me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's something I've needed to learn for a long time.
Sure.
But on top of the fact that I'm interested in it, I know you don't do that, but you did that for me. So it's like there's more skin in the game for me, not just what I can get out of it and help build my life better,
Sure.
but there's even more skin in it because, hey, someone else did this who I know they don't do this.
That's cool.
But
man.
they did this.
I didn't even think of it like that.
Yeah, and it's not pressure. It's just more skin in the game. It's more commitment.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think it was just. I mean, the reason I made the exception is like that's the amount of confidence I have in you that you know through our conversations because of your interest in the subject matter, and I know you read. Like I don't know a lot of people that habitually read books, but I know you do. So it's like, oh, this is maybe different.
Well, you can't see the bookshelves from where you're sitting on camera for all of, you listening, but there's 2 bookshelves to my left, and there's 2 down to his right, and there's also books stacked next to it because I haven't got more shelves yet. And I actually read these books. Some of them I haven't touched yet. Most of them I've been through at least a good portion of them, and they're on all kinds of different things.
And you got the 2 books. How many books have you written? You got 2
4
of them here.
Yeah, I got 3 of those there. Then I got the one that was a joke. It's 70 blank pages called "Everything the Military Taught Me About Marriage," and I give those away as gag gifts, or I'll sell them for $10 at my speaking gigs.
That's funny.
And people give them to like the veterans in their lives, and I only got one nasty email from that book. Some lady was really pissed off. She goes, "I bought this book for my son who's in the Army. Him and his wife are having marriage trouble, and it's all blank."
She didn't know that it was blank.
I didn't even respond. I'm like, "There's nothing I'm gonna say that's gonna make this better." All I could think though, is, lady, just give him the damn book and watch.
Yeah,
You're gonna
still
see
sends a message, right?
Yeah, you're gonna see these 2 people who hate each other apparently, who are getting divorced. You're gonna see them laugh in each other's presence. They're gonna laugh together because they're gonna open there's a ball and chain on the front, and you flip it open, and there's 70 blank pages. Yeah, we can bring it up here.
Let's see this thing.
Yeah, instead of describing it, might as well just bring it up. There you go. Yeah, I thought of that like years ago.
There you go. Let's see what kind of. Oh.
So it's like everything the military taught me about marriage. It's a little dusty, but yeah, it's like blank pages. Now, I do have text on the last page. These are ideas for why you should buy bulk copies of these. Pre-deployment, deployment, post-deployment, welcome home parties, birthdays, bachelor parties, retirement parties, military holidays, a gag gift, and then I tell them where to get it. But yeah, I mean,
did you have these printed or?
Oh yeah, I totally hell. I even created the cover, which is why it sucks. Which it doesn't matter though. It's such a funny concept. People pay $10 a pop for them.
That's cool.
So next time they say starting a business is hard, just remember, I wrote a blank book. I created a blank book and I sell them for $10 a pop.
You at least put some page numbers on here.
Yeah, I did put page numbers.
They have header. Oh, they've got headers.
Yeah, it's just the title.
That's funny.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to buy one of these, where can they get it?
I don't know if it's actually on the website at this point, at blownupguy.com, which is my speaking website with my books and stuff. I think it might not be on there right now. Write me an email, though. Write us an email, and if you do want one, I see what we can do for you. But
we'll just send you a blank notebook.
Yeah. And I'll refund your money.
No, we'll send you a link to the audiobook. It's just 2 hours of silence.
2 hours of silence. You can hear me breathing. And every now and then I'll say the headline, the title, Everything the Military Taught Me About Marriage.
Chapter 3.
Everything the military taught me about marriage. Oh, it's stupid. But it's funny.
Yeah, it's funny, yeah.
And funny sells.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you want to know another thing? If you're ever trying to get money out of people, make them laugh. Make them laugh while you're asking them for money. So if you're a nonprofit person or a TV preacher or any kind of preacher, I'll tell you, I've done this a long time. If you can make people laugh, and I learned this from one of my original mentors who's done so much good nonprofit work, and he doesn't have someone speak for him. Like, he raises the money, he speaks, and it's funny because I learned it just through observing him, and some of the things he would say is like, give whatever you can. We know everyone's at a different income level. Certain people can give certain amounts, but just so you know, the word million has 2 L's in the middle, and and just kind of throw it in there and just keep talking, and or million has 6 zeros after the one, so just remember that when you're making out your checks. It just like haha, it's like almost like you almost miss it if you're not paying attention. But when you couple that with like something people really believe in, and you're actually doing something really good, and then you insert some humor around like the asking, you like couple it, you kind of make a sandwich of humor around the ask for money. It's great. It works really well, and
it's part of a bigger concept too, right? It's like, generally speaking, like in sales or any time that you're trying to have money come your way, is the idea is to have people let their guard down. So through humor, it can work. Follow a guy.
Because people are waiting to get sold, and they don't want to be sold.
Exactly.
But they want to give to something that's great, they believe in, and contribute.
Exactly, yeah. So, like, if you get, like, anybody that's...
You said there was a guy. You're about to tell a story.
Oh, well, there's a guy on... I follow on Instagram. His name's Jeremy Miner. He's amazing sales expert, and he teaches that whole concept of... having people let their guard down, and it can be done through humor. But the biggest thing is that he uses his tonality, the tones he uses, the pauses he uses, the hand gestures he uses. It really helps people take their guard down. So like, and I couldn't duplicate the way he explains it, but his name's Jeremy Miner. He's on Instagram, but he'll say this thing. It's like, you can't, like, people, as soon as you walk up to somebody and go, "Oh, hello, Mr. Fleming, how can I earn your business today?" People immediately put their walls up. Like, "Oh,
you're not."
Salesman alert.
That's the answer. You're not earning my business today.
Yeah, just got to get rid of this guy somehow. Yep. But Jeremy Miner is kind of he's not a salesperson. He's there to help. He's there to consult. And so he'll, go, hey, listen, you're here now, and we know that you want to be here. He has people visualize that, so they're focused on the progress and not the cost. You're here, and we want to see if we can help you get here. I don't even know if we can help you, but maybe we can have a conversation. We can talk about, what's going on, what your situation is, and how. And hey, at the end of the call, if it's determined that maybe we can help you and you wanted to talk next steps, then we can go down that road. And people, just immediately let their guard down.
Well, the thing is, if you can just have a normal conversation, like if you can just talk to people like you and I are talking, and then I ask you about, hey, do you ever deal with this particular problem? Mm-hmm. Like I've been meeting a lot of people lately who deal with this particular problem. And if it's something you deal with, and I'm just asking, it's like, you're happy to tell me about it. Because here's the thing about stories. If you stop talking about people's problems or a problem someone cares about in the story you're telling, whether it's in a movie or a story you're reading or a story you're thinking, like when you stop talking about people's problems, they stop listening.
Yeah.
So you can't go too long without sort of pinging the problem.
Sure.
Because, I mean, look at every news headline. It's breaking news, and it's a fucking problem, and it's the end of the world. Yeah, like, you have to hear this now. Yeah. Don't miss this, or like, you're going to die. Like, no, you're not.
Because we have a negativity bias. Humans.
Well, because we give attention to it.
Yeah, we give attention to it. And it's a survival feature.
Yeah, which is good.
Which is good. It's helped the human race progress. But yeah, we definitely have a bias towards negative news.
That's why there's no good news channels. They don't sell. They don't sell. Nobody watches them.
Yeah, Don Lemon's not going to come on CNN tonight and go, "Hey guys, good news, everybody. Turns out nothing terrible happened today." Like, and here, let's cut to Brian donating to charity. Brian Fleming over there in Texas donating to charity today. What a nice gesture.
No, what they would do goes, look at this asshole broadcasting how he's charitable. local war veteran broadcast publicly how charitable he is as he gives. Because then it's like, oh, what's he talking about his giving for? He shouldn't be broadcasting that. He should be doing that behind closed doors where nobody knows about it, because that's a righteous thing to do.
But
and that might not even be what I did.
I know.
But because they're talking about it, you can spin it, and now you got eyeballs.
Yeah, and if let's say that it was negative news about you. Look at Brian. He's, whatever bad news that you're doing. He shoplifted. It's everybody wants to see that. Everybody wants to see you going in handcuffs.
We love to make people be a villain, and then we love to watch villains get taken down, even if it's not the truth.
Yeah. We like watching justice carried out.
Yeah, or what we think is justice.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as it feels like it. That's why I've had to be careful, like commenting anything on social media about different court cases or public happenings, until I do like my real due diligence.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say something based off your perception of a headline or a few things you heard, and then it's like, oh, but they didn't mention these other details. I'm like, oh, well, shit, if I would have known that, I wouldn't have said. So it's like, yeah, you got to be more careful with that.
I have to admit, I don't know if it's called a guilty pleasure or what, but I'm guilty of this. I've been following the events in Ukraine since it started 7, 8, 9 months ago. And man, I dedicate a good 30 minutes to reading the news about it and stuff. And it's all bad news. There's horrible things happening over there. But I'm so into it. I'm so into like getting the daily updates and stuff. Especially since it seems like Ukraine is like making it. They're starting to win or whatever. But
yeah, I heard they've kicked a lot of Russian ass. So that's what I've been told by people I know who live there.
Yeah, it's ugly over there right now. But it's interesting to see it play out like a big. And I don't know, we're not talking about the Russian war, but it's my negativity bias. I like reading about that news every day.
But also, what you're getting is a narrative that someone decided to tell you of the version they want to report and have and spread and have you hear.
That's true.
And it's like, even if they're well intentioned, how accurate is it? And what was their source? Is that really what's happening?
Yeah, that's a good point. Because there's really no way of knowing unless you're on the ground right there witnessing. And even then, back to our original question, what story am I telling myself about what's happening here?
Well, like when Russia first invaded Ukraine, there was a guy on my Facebook who, I don't know him, but he follows me. And he's one of these guys who like, don't believe anybody, like ultra mega weirdly oddly major right wing, like way too far way too far right wing, like for anyone's good.
He's like a QAnon guy.
Yeah,
he's like on the board at QAnon.
Yeah, and like he's like how do we know Russia even invaded Ukraine? I'm like, well, there's footage, but okay, that could be manufactured, I suppose. Yeah. But then I said, well, actually, I know people who live there, and I have a friend who married a guy who lives here in America now, but his whole family is there right now because that's where he's from.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, so your friend isn't actually there. I'm like, dude, his fucking family's there, and his brother just like conscripted because the Russians are about to murder all of them.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but how do you really know? And I'm like, then I got another friend who I wrote that lives in Ukraine. And I'm like, hey, can you tell us about kind of what's going on there? And they're like, we live in Western Ukraine. We're a small town. Our airport got bombed and destroyed by the Russians last night.
Wow.
These are people who live there.
Yeah.
And I said, I owed this guy nothing. None of my time. I don't know the guy. He's a total stranger and kind of a weirdo. But I was like, well, hey, do you want to see some screenshots of the messages I'm getting? Uh-huh. Like, I'm happy to do that. If, I'm like, whatever, just entertain it. Well, I screenshotted and I sent them and I said, hey, this is what I'm being told by people who live in Ukraine. I guess this person could be lying about the Russians blowing up the airport in their small town where their families lived for 5 generations. They're probably not. Maybe it was someone else's bomb. Like, how do you know the Russians dropped the bomb? Yeah. How was it? Maybe it was Chinese or it's like, dude, like you're, the liberal left is fucking insane, but the extreme right is equally fucking insane in their own way. And like the truth is usually somewhere in the middle, but that's all a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if in this little town I live in North Texas, if the little airport 20 minutes from here got bombed, I would know about it. Yeah. And if someone in Ukraine or Russia or England went, did that little airport near Frisco, Texas really get bombed? In McKinney or wherever, that little airport, did it really? It's like, well, did it really happen? And someone's going, dude, Brian just sent me this. Like, he took a picture. Yeah. Like, how do we know that was the McKinney airport? Because it's blasted to shit now, and we can't confirm or deny if that was actually that one or if that was just some airport in a picture. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the level of like, misinformation and abused storytelling has gotten people to. Yeah. Well, because you're not entirely off by questioning that far, but you have to kind of know, like, okay, question everything, sure. But then it's like, well, where's the line between I'm just being an idiot? Yeah. You know?
Well, also it's like it's hard to remember in those moments, because I think we've all had that experience on social media where it's like you're going head to head with somebody arguing about what's true.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget that, like, it doesn't fucking matter if that guy believes you. You know what I'm saying? Like, but people like that guy have this attitude that I owe it to them to prove my point. Like, I don't owe you anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and keep believing what you believe. I don't care. The truth is gonna remain, and my life is gonna continue.
Well, even if you were right or he was right, it wouldn't change whatever's happening.
Yeah, the truth, still exists.
Like, it's still what it is.
Yeah, that's true.
There's an interesting concept that I learned in storytelling. I have a book around here. Don't know where it is. It's a big white book. It's called Save the Cat, and it's by a guy named Blake Snyder. He's like a playwright, like a screenwriter, writes movies. And basically the concept of saving the cat it's interesting because the stories we perceive and we're told how we should perceive something, how we should believe something, whether it's a social issue, a lifestyle issue, a war issue, a political issue. We're told things, but then we're sort of influenced and told how we should think about them and perceive them. And there's an interesting concept that the book is named after called Save the Cat. And this is a screenwriting technique that has been used a number of times in very successful stories. Basically, I think the example he gives in the book in the very beginning was, so imagine there's this scene in a movie. It's just starting out, and you have these undercover police. They're about to, like, kick in the door, raid these few mafia leaders getting together, going to go in, arrest them, and right as they're about to go in, these guys walk out the other door, and the leader they're going after, the real big guy, he has like a 6-year-old son with him, and it's like there's this moment where, like, oh, we can take them all down right in front of the kid. Hey, tough life. But instead, the guy who's the cop, who's the main character in the story, who's the leader, they're wanting to get the audience to warm up to him, because he's the main character. So you want the audience to really gravitate and like this guy. Oh, yeah, let's go get him. Well, they could shoot him up, they could take him down, tackle him, do this whole thing with the leader. And it would be traumatic for his kid to see.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, tough life. Instead of doing that, what they did in the story was, the mafia guys looked over, and they saw the cops, and it was like from here to the mailbox, like they were close. Like there's no sense in running.
Yeah.
You know, they have weapons and everything. And the cop in charge looks over and says, whatever the name of the main leader was, who had his little boy with him. He goes, hey, so-and-so, I'll be seeing you around. And the guy, like the look on his face of the leader who had his boy with him, the mafia leader with his little boy, he had this like scared, oh shit, kind of, but then relieved look.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't do this in front of my son.
It's like a form of respect almost.
Yeah. And it's like, well, you could say, oh, just take him down. Yeah. How much do you like that lead officer now? It's like, it said something about his moral compass. It said, not that he shouldn't have done it, but it said something about he has a conscience. Like,
Yeah, he did.
This
he did
could
a
like
nice thing.
this could scar the kid. So now there's this thing that we kind of like about him,
Yeah,
and you can do the same thing with a bad guy. Like if there's someone who's a bad guy in the beginning and he's about to do something, but then he delays it or he doesn't do it because maybe there's a kid there, or it's like, oh, even though he's bad, he still has a conscience of some sort, and he wanted to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So now we're almost endearing toward a bad person, a bad character,
sure.
because we're like, man, they didn't have to give that grace, but they did.
Yeah.
And so that's called saving the cat, and it's a really
Saving the cat.
yeah, it's
Why do they call it that though?
I don't know.
Maybe there's like an example like that.
maybe like the cat in the
involves a
tree.
cat.
Maybe like the fireman saves the cat in the tree. Maybe
yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, oh, he's such a good guy.
I gotcha.
I don't know if
It's
that's
a cliche for like doing a nice thing, like a heroic sort of thing.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
But like when you think about the stories we're told, like that technique could be used to shift your perception of a story. There's a new Jeffrey Dahmer documentary on Netflix. I haven't watched it.
I haven't either. I heard a lot of people talking about
Yeah,
it.
if you don't know who Jeffrey Dahmer is, he's a terrible person, horrible guy, killed a bunch of people. I don't remember. I
Or
mean,
is that just the story they've told you?
that's the story they told us. But
I'm just kidding. He's probably
Yeah.
terrible.
yeah, I mean, I remember when all that shit went down years ago. But like, I saw somebody's comment on some forum, it was Reddit or I don't know, some forum about people discussing these documentaries, and someone had made mention about, I can't believe there are people who are responding to that documentary feeling bad for Jeffrey Dahmer. And it probably went back to somewhere in his childhood, or I don't know. I didn't read into it, but probably maybe, he got fucked up as a kid, then it led him to be fucked up as an adult and do the fucked up things he did.
Yeah.
But like the thing was, I can't believe people are being compassionate. They're saying they're compassionate toward that horrible murder. Now when I saw Dahmer, and it's this yellow picture of this guy, like, yeah, like that's a bad dude. But when I started seeing comments like that, like, I can't believe now the narrative shifted. Wait, there's a group of people who are sympathetic to Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yeah.
Like, well, what would that be? So now we have another story starting. And, it's like nobody's probably trying to justify any of the horrible shit that he did. But that can influence how you feel about a person, no matter how evil they are, if you wrap a narrative around it that is different. And, I mean, yeah, it's weird because, like, you look at that documentary, it's called Dahmer.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's about a bad dude.
Right.
There's one about Jim Jones, and there's another one about the Waco guy. Lots of like domestic terrorist documentaries on Netflix right now. I'm not sure why.
That's what's selling right now.
Yeah,
Well,
but
the point you're making though is valid. Like and you've heard me make this point before, and it's a hard point to make because it sounds like I'm saying something that I'm not. But we talk about child molesters before, and the initial reaction to a child, he's a child molester. Well, fuck that guy, hang him high,
Yeah,
and those are all. I mean, that outrage is warranted. I mean, it's a terrible thing to sexually molest a child.
Yeah, most people don't disagree with some sort of harsh punishment like that.
Yeah, but that's because the story we're being told or telling ourselves is that guy is a child molester. Now, if we change the story and it's still equally true, that guy is a former child that got molested.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're more sympathetic. It's like, okay, what he's doing to kids is still absolutely horrific. It doesn't take away from that.
Yeah.
However, you can almost understand and sympathize with how they got that fucked up. Like, why are they doing these types of things?
It's like the story of how they came to be the way they are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a former... That guy used to be a little kid, and that guy used to... which is statistically, that's the way that
a lot of it
people
does
become child molesters.
Yep.
That guy used to be a little kid that was molested. We have all the sympathy for the child that he's molesting. where's the sympathy for this guy? Maybe he can't help himself. It's like I don't know. Anyway, you can see why this opinion of mine is pretty unpopular. But I don't condone child molestation.
No, sure, no,
at all.
Nobody with a brain would think that.
Okay, yeah, good.
But no, if you have a brain, you can understand what Daniel's saying, because it's like we cared. Okay, let's say this child molester guy. We cared about him when he was a kid, and he got hurt.
Right.
But now that he's an adult and he didn't get the help he needed, maybe. Now he's the fucking villain, and we want to see his ass strung up from the highest tree.
And we definitely want to put a stop to it.
Yeah, and we want to put a stop to it. We don't want that to perpetuate, obviously.
Yeah.
But and here's the question though: where do we stop having compassion for, that poor kid, and now it's like, fuck this guy, let's string him up. It's the same person, just at a different age. Like, again, we're not obviously condoning any of that, but we're looking at but you have to look at that though. If you're ever going to solve a problem, you have to look at when something happened and where they are now and the progression. Is there anything we can fix in there?
Yeah.
Where we can maybe prevent this from happening more. You have to be able to look at it from that objective point of view if you're going to have a solution possibly ever found.
Yeah, because it's like
even though on the surface it sounds jacked up.
Right. Yeah, because when we're going, fuck that guy, kill him, rape him back, we're all. It's a natural. I mean, I've had those same reactions to this. It's natural, but we're all looking at it from the perspective that, this person has complete control over their actions. But then you stop and realize it's some people know that smoking's bad, but they're still smoking a cigarette while
they can't say no to a cigarette. They can't.
Yeah.
They can't say no to a donut.
Right. You can't say no. And so
this guy can't say no to hurting people sexually. Or you can't say no to Mexican food or a donut or a cigarette.
Right.
It's like, that's different. Different item, yeah. But how different is that strong desire or urge?
Yep.
I mean, it's probably similar somewhere as far as a primal urge.
Yeah.
I mean, again, two totally different things. But, yeah.
Yeah, so it's that's sort of the cat thing, right? What would you call it? Saving the cat.
Saving the cat?
Saving the cat. It just depends on what context you're looking at the scenario in. And the child molestation one, admittedly, is there's
pretty extreme.
There's nothing that's going to change the damage that's done to the child. That's unacceptable in any scenario for any reason.
Yeah.
But it's just food for thought as far as how did that come to be?
Or think about the save the cat concept here. I can't think of the movie, but there's probably many out there where you had a bad guy, the whole movie. He was bad. He was terrible. And for some reason, at the end, he came to a place where he had the opportunity to do something selfless, but it was going to cost him everything, his life.
Yeah.
And then
that's a popular story.
The bad person you've grown to hate, they have this sort of transformation, this change of heart, and they end up taking the bullet for the little kid, and then you're like, shit, I can't hate that person. It's harder to hate that person.
Yeah.
There was some good in them still, and even if it was at the very end and it cost them everything, they realized it, and they were probably hoping this one little thing doing right could maybe help redeem the horrible story they've created and lived. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's some sort of redemption around that, because that's what I think we're all looking for. And the best stories are about redemption. The best stories are about transformation.
And it's so relatable, universally relatable too, because all of us, the older we get, we've talked about this before too, is you look back on some things you've done in the past with this with the new wisdom you have for being around longer, and it's oh man, I messed that one up. I should have handled that different, So we can all relate to that, to the evolving and becoming better people through through experiences.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different elements of stories where you can tweak little things here and there, and people will perceive the actual story in different ways, and that's why misinformation on the internet and social media is so rampant. I mean, you can have people arguing about 4 different perspectives on one story, and all 4 of those perspectives could be equally untrue and invalid completely.
Right.
But they're so bent on being right or believing it. It's like talking to someone who drank the Kool-Aid. Like you're not gonna talk them out of the fact that their leader, their fucking cult leader, is a fucking crazy. Like no, he's not. You know, like he's not that bad. Like he messes up sometimes and kills people, and but he's really a good dude. It's like you can't talk people out of certain narratives.
Yeah, well, that's been perpetuated by I hear like people older than we are talk about like Walter Cronkite. Whenever he used to tell the news, the way the news was always told is just the facts. Man. Here's the facts of what happened in this situation. Well, the news is not like that anymore. It's all commentary and opinion. And
it's the story they want you to hear about what happened.
Yeah.
Because they have an end they want to accomplish.
Exactly. And so like those four people, one person got their info from CNN, the other person got their info from Fox, the other person got it from, I don't know, Vice, whatever, and they're all conflicting stories.
The local 14-year-old's basement blog.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Who's so certain that he's right.
Yeah, and so it's just
and has no credible sources.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, those are multiple stories that are being told, but then we have to take in all that, inform our own perspective and story based on that.
Yeah, we're being required more now than ever to try to see through the bullshit.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it.
Yeah. It's mostly bullshit.
I think it mostly is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what sells. It's what gets you watching the commercials.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're mostly for-profit organizations. The media.
Oh, yeah.
And profit includes, I mean, with all what sucks is like the government gets involved with the media, right? You could say like, oh, it's two separate things. Like, there's no way CNN's talking with the Biden administration. But
are you kidding me?
But I mean, yeah,
that's why they won't say anything good about Trump, or you'll never hear Fox say anything potentially complimentary about Biden. Like, no side will ever give any little, and it's like.
There's money involved. And some people might say, no, there's no way that the government's sending the news organizations just checks to report. Well, maybe that's true. But there's also like...
getting you elected to office and other things that lead to other ways of profiting and power. Yeah,
and then the incentive on the media's end, is maybe not in the form of like a briefcase full of cash. It could be in the form of, there's a lot of regulations that go along with broadcasting, and it's like, and taxes, and it's like, okay, well, you guys play ball with us, and
we might look the other way.
Ahead and your tower is up to code. Yeah, we won't come inspect it or whatever. But there's all kinds of ways.
Yeah, but your competition news company, they're not in bed with us, so we'll take shots at them, which will be advantageous for you.
Yeah.
And well, what does that monetize into over time? Like. Yeah. That turns into money. It turns into influence and more in several ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the same thing. It's like it's so easy to be like, well, they wouldn't do that.
Are you kidding me?
This is the United States.
Of course they
wouldn't do that. Of course they would.
Why do you think we are the United States?
Like
we take shit.
Not only are they only human, like we're all human.
Yeah, no one's above it.
Yeah, but not only that, but they are also the type of people that have fought tooth and nail to be in that position.
They're not just going to give it up.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta. It takes a special kind of person that wants to be the president. I don't want that freaking job.
Never.
Like, it doesn't power doesn't do it for me, but so all you get are people that are power hungry. So anyway, I sound like a QAnon member now. I'm getting all conspiratorial.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, look at human history. It's not called conspiracy. It's called human history.
Yeah.
I mean, every government you can look at, assassinations to politically trying to bump people out, wrecking people's reputations, trying to like vilify their businesses so everybody would boycott them. So, trying to put pressure on that way.
Mm-hmm. There's always going to be human interests.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, my whole thing would be, if you don't think that goes on, what fucking rock have you been living under? Yeah. Like, how much are you not paying attention to the world around you? Like, you see this, you could go into work inside of a company and you can see it within like the department.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know who's getting promoted next time? It's not that guy or lady who's highest and most qualified. It's this other person for these other reasons that could be political or racial or whatever. You name the social issue, and we don't want the company to look this way too much, so we're going to give it to this other person who's this, even though they're not most qualified.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that person's the biggest fuck up around, and no one has any idea why they got the promotion when everyone knows that this person should have gotten it because they actually know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
But then you go, well, that's what happens. So it's like from the smallest level to the biggest, like that goes on everywhere. And if you look 100%. At your life, you look at your job or your social gathering, your church, I don't care what it is. Like you said, we're all human and nobody's above that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what gets
we're
me
all
is
imperfect.
What gets me is these people who, and I'm a combat veteran. I fought the war in Afghanistan, so I've earned the fucking right to say this, but people say, well, if there's a wounded terrorist, he could still be a threat.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to double tap them. You're not supposed to shoot them if you don't think they're a threat. You're not supposed to finish them off.
Yeah.
Even though he may have just killed your friend, like maybe maybe I just watched him shoot and kill you.
Sure.
And your body's over there. Well, we're American. We're above that. We're better. We're better than they are. Yeah. Like maybe they would do that. They would do that to you. But people in America who've never been in the military or war, they would say, I've heard people say stuff like this where, we're American. We're better than that. Mm-hmm. And you know what? No, we're fucking not.
No,
we are not better than that.
Yeah.
And that's why you get your story straight before you get back to the base after a mission.
That's right.
And you get everyone on the same page because you don't want to be getting in trouble for trying to survive. I'm not saying you should do that in every case.
Yeah, but it happens.
But it happens. But the thing is, people who are unqualified, who have never been in that position, have the audacity to say things like, it sounds endearing. Uh-huh. We're better than that because we're Americans.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're humans and we're not better than that.
Well, that was a big thing during the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Where, a new lieutenant would get assigned to the platoon. Mm-hmm. And anybody who wasn't in the military, basically the lieutenant is somebody that's like fresh out of college. They're the highest ranking person in your platoon, even though...
With the least experience, probably?
We have the least experience, yeah.
But they're in charge.
Yeah, but they're in charge. And so, like, in Vietnam, there was a lot of times where... So in the military, it's a big joke where, like, the lieutenant can get you killed or they'll get you lost or whatever. Lieutenants were getting shot in the back all the time in Vietnam.
By their own people.
Yeah, by their own people.
Because the people...
They knew that guy was going to get them killed.
Yeah.
So it's like, we got to eliminate the threat. He's going to lead us and get us killed. And so, and it's not right.
No.
But it happens.
But when push comes to shove and it comes to survival, we do turn into animals. We do. Even this is like a really stupid, pathetic example. But remember when it was like a year or two ago, that one oil rig off of Galveston, off the coast, went down. And the news said there may be a gas shortage just temporarily.
Yeah.
Dude, you could not get into a gas station. People were filling up, filling up their car, filling up multiple gas cans. People are fighting each other because they thought someone cut in front of them. There's no... For some reason in Texas, whenever there's anything, all the bread gets off the shelves. People rape the bread shelf.
Only the Texas toast.
Yeah, the Texas toast. And, there's no toilet paper, there's no bread. And, the gas pumps were being so overused that they were breaking. The machines were burning out. The chips in them were literally going down because of the overconsumption rapidly. Now, there wasn't... From my understanding, there wasn't actually a shortage until we created it because everyone jammed up every gas pump at once, and nobody's used to consuming that much that quick. That's not a regular scheduled delivery. So there was a shortage, but in large part we created it. But it was a narrative. There might be a scarcity. There might be because this one oil rig went down, due like a hurricane or something. But then we created that. It was the narrative that created that.
Yeah.
If nobody would have said a damn thing, I don't think anyone would have ever known.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people say that the economy is affected the same way. There's been recent talk about recession and all that. And some theories are just the talk of it and the belief that, oh, a recession's coming, and then the way people change their habits in response to that news is actually what creates the recession. You know, the other remember when the toilet, I think this was like a nationwide issue, the toilet paper shortage during COVID.
The great TP shortage of 2020.
Yeah, that one I just could not wrap my brain around that one, because I understand that everything was uncertain. We didn't know if grocery stores were going to still be open or whatever. But the last thing I'm worried about in a survival situation is, how am I going to wipe my ass, right? Like, I can think of 100 different ways right now.
Yeah, how many trees there are in my neighborhood?
You know, without toilet paper. Like, my last concern is toilet paper.
I'm thinking food, fuel, shelter.
Yeah.
But how to wipe my ass? That was the one that people lost their shit over, no pun intended.
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, exactly.
They had to ration out. Like, you couldn't buy more than one package of TP. So people had every family member they had go in there and do a separate transaction, and everyone grab a big old thing. Yeah. So you can bring home 50 fucking rolls of this shit.
For what?
Yeah, and then it stacks up. And it's there was no shortage until we created it. But it was a narrative. It was a story.
And how long has toilet paper been around? I'm going to Google that, because human history is lived without toilet paper for a really long time.
Well, there are certain parts of the Middle East, Afghanistan in particular, where I used to live, where they still don't have it everywhere. And they use their hand in a pile of dirt. Well, that's why you don't ever touch someone with, what is it, your left hand? Or whatever, because that's your wipe your ass hand with.
India, too.
Yeah.
1857 is when toilet paper was invented. So
what did human beings do for the previous thousands or millions of years we were here?
I'll tell you what I used to do in the Army.
This is going to be good. That's a great way to start a story. How to start a story. Here's what I used to do in the Army.
Well, we wear our BDUs, and back then it was BDUs, and you have a brown T-shirt underneath.
Like your camouflage uniform and the brown T-shirt. Yeah.
And so what I would do is... anytime I had a bathroom event where I needed toilet paper, I'd start with the sleeves. I'd cut the sleeves off and use those, and then by the end of a 2 or 3 week field exercise, all I would have is just the part you could see.
The collar. Yeah. So you're within regs. Yeah, you're within regulation.
Still wearing a shirt.
So no one's like, why aren't you wearing a T-shirt underneath? And you're cut up to here.
Yeah,
you got the collar.
Exactly.
Hey, do what you got to do,
man. It's effective, though. It's biodegradable. You can bury it. It's cotton.
It's cotton.
So, yeah, it wouldn't hurt anybody. Because you can't carry around toilet paper in your rucksack.
No.
I mean, I guess you could, but MRE's got it. But
yeah, it would take a lot of space. Well, that's where, baby wipes came in handy. Because they come in slim packages. There's 100 of them in there.
Yeah.
Plus, you can use them. Freshen up. You can't shower for a month. You're out in the field. But you can wipe off with those and get clean.
Yep.
So, there's that. But
that's useful.
Yeah, the T-shirt thing, man. Yeah, that's you just do what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, usually, especially because sometimes you don't change your T-shirt for 2 or 3 for 2 weeks. You brought other shirts, but you just don't get around to changing it. That shirt's going in the trash when I get home anyway.
Yeah, or the bonfire. Just burn the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. But, yeah, man. Stories run the world, and the ones we tell ourselves, I think, sort of just determine the quality of life we have. I mean, think about your quality of life. What determines quality of life? There's a lot of answers to that, but is it not true that the underlying factor, one of the big ones that determines a person's quality of life, is the story they tell themselves about what they're consciously experiencing?
Mm-hmm. Your perspective or your attitude. There's a lot of names for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the story we tell ourselves.
Yep.
And you can't believe everything you think. Or even feel sometimes.
It's a good title for this episode. You can't believe everything you think.
Don't believe everything you think.
Yeah.
I'm writing that one down. I probably didn't come up with it. I have no idea, but we'll use it.
Yeah. But on that note, we appreciate you guys for watching this far. So, as you know, if you've been watching any of our other episodes, we'll start out with a topic. We'll go down various rabbit trails. That's part of our charm. So thanks for watching this far. And if you have any questions, go to our email address.
Yeah. Feel free to send us your questions, and we'd love to discuss those if you have any. And again, as we always say, we don't know everything, but we'll discuss it. Just send your questions to questionsaboutlife podcast@gmail.com. Questions about life, podcast@gmail.com. And yeah, we'd be happy to talk about your questions. So send it.
Yeah, just send us topics. We're looking for topics, and it's your chance to be featured on the show if you want to. You can also ask anonymously.
Yeah, just let us know. But yeah, we love talking about it, and we're going to talk anyway, so thought we might as well share that with you.
That's right. Thanks for watching, guys.